Okay, awesome. So welcome to Kumi Now. My name is Tan. I'm a project coordinator at Sabil, and welcome to our latest Kumi Now online gathering. If you're new here and would like to learn more about Sabil or Kumi Now, I'll make sure to provide some links later in the chat where you can find information about other future online gatherings. Our topic today will be on international solidarity, and we're joined today by Amira from International Solidarity Mission. And the first part of our meeting will be dedicated to our guest, but please stay around after she leaves, as we'll dedicate the rest of the time to discussion and action as we engage in advocacy on Palestine. So before we start, I'd like to just remind everyone that the session is being recorded and will be shared after the event. So please make sure your mic is off. And if you have an opportunity to speak, you can put that in the chat and I'll make sure to relay the questions during Q&A. So to introduce our speaker today, Amira is a US-based community organizer who leads with her heart and is committed to a free Palestine. Her dedication to justice, support, protection, and community building led her to the front line, where she confronted the occupation in the West Bank in 2024. She's also helped organize numerous pro-Palestine actions in her city, including a massive pressure campaign challenging South by Southwest's relationship with the military-industrial complex that garnered international attention. So Amira, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to us and talk about ISM and ISM's work. And yeah, we're excited to hear from you. And feel free to share your screen so you can begin your presentation.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone who's online. This is a great turnout. I'm so excited to share my presentation with you. Um, so let me just get my screen going. Okay, how's that look? Good. And then,
Yeah, great.
um, okay. So the title of my talk is Solidarity in Palestine. I was in the West Bank in May and June of 2024. So during the active and acute genocide of Gaza, where a lot of the world's focus was on, regarding Palestine, was on Gaza, and but the situation in the West Bank is it's extraordinarily violent and really needs some more eyes on their situation. What the international solidarity movement does is called protective presence. So we were established during the Second Intifada in 2002, and we have had an international presence on the ground for over 20 years in the West Bank and previously as in Gaza as well. Um, Foreigners come from all over the world to stay in villages and cities and tiny little farming communities with Palestinians who are facing um, threats from the occupation and from settlers. And the thing is, the reason why they need us, or the reason why we stand with them in solidarity on their land, is because when we are there with our foreign passports and our cameras and our phones documenting their atrocities, they are significantly less violent. Violent nonetheless, but significantly less when they know that the world is watching. Because we're there and uh, we're watching them, we are recording them, and we're publishing that information. And they don't want to be seen. Um, I have a couple of videos in my presentation. I'm gonna try to play them. I hope they play well. I've never done this virtually. So I just wanted to share some sweet moments from when I was on the ground. Here's me playing with some kids in the West Bank. Um, So you may have heard of Ayşenur Ezgi Egi, who was a Turkish American citizen who was volunteering with the International Solidarity Movement in September 2024. She was at a demonstration outside of an illegal outpost settlement in Beta on a Friday where she joined the community in prayer and then stood in solidarity as they resisted the occupation. 30 minutes after the demonstration was complete, the IOF shot Aishinor in the head. She was 26-year-old graduate from University of Washington in Seattle, and she was extremely passionate about uh, uh, Palestine and human rights in general. And this was a really tough uh, blow to our organization and to our community and to um, the work that we do in Palestine. So I like to start all of my presentations with a moment of silence because um, we have lost so many people in this struggle for Palestinian liberation. So if you could join me in reflecting in their memory. Thank you. So to give a little bit of context for my experience in Palestine, I want to talk about Misafriyata, which is an area of villages at the very south of the West Bank, right on the line. And the West Bank is divided up into three different administrative areas. There's Area A, which is the smallest amount of like geographic land that's administered by the Palestinian Authority. Then Area B shares the Palestinian Authority shares security control with Israel, and Area C is administered by Israel. Area C is orange. You can see it is most of the West Bank. Um, I don't know if you can see my pointer on the screen. Actually, no, you probably can't. But when I was in the bank, I spent most of my time all the way at the very bottom of this map. The West Bank is littered with these huge, intimidating red signs that are written in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. These are put up by the occupation and they're meant to like evoke fear. Um, these signs, you'll see them when you're entering Area A, which is administered by the Palestinian Authority. Um, this uh, they say that it's dangerous to enter Area A for Israelis, but really, it's quite the opposite. The sign should really be facing the other way, letting Palestinians know that when they, if they have to leave, that they're going to be facing um, life-threatening situations when they deal with the occupation. So there is state land and then there's Palestinian land in the West Bank, and uncultivated land becomes state land, which is a law from the Ottoman Empire. And it becomes state land after 3 years. And a lot of land is designated as uncultivated because the Palestinians who own that land don't have the permit to cultivate their own land, to harvest their olives or to graze their sheep or to grow their crops, because Israel explicitly uh, prevents them from doing that. Um, and if there is a permit to cultivate their land, then they're able to go onto their land, but then they face the army or the police or settlers coming and harassing them, hurting them, attacking them. And so Israel makes it incredibly difficult for Palestinians to just exist on their land and then steals their land from them. They draw maps on the fly, the occupation. They'll draw a map on the back of a takeout bag and say, this is where you're not allowed to stand anymore. And whoever it is that writes that, that draws that, say it's a settler, you know, the occupation army will come behind them and defend their egregious claims and their silly drawings, really. And then there are settlements and outposts all over the West Bank, all over Palestinian land, and they are constructed so that Palestinians can't travel from villages to villages where they may have family or friends or work, um, because they'd have to pass through or around a settlement or an outpost, which makes it, and then, or a checkpoint, which makes it really difficult. Here is some beautiful images and video from when I was in Masafriata. This is the road on the left, that's the road to Rakiz, and on the right is one of the stunning sunsets that took my breath away every single time that I was there, every time that I witnessed it. So Palestinians have been facing ethnic cleansing and expulsion since 1948, since the Nakba. So we're going on 77 years in May of this year. Um, and since the 80s, the West Bank has been 20% of the West Bank has been declared a firing zone, which is where military can practice. And firing zone 918 is where I spent most of my time, and that is Masafriata. And in Masafriata, there are 215 households, over 1,000 people, more than half of them are children. And most of the homes have several demolition orders on them, which means that at any time, without any warning, a bulldozer can show up and destroy everything a family has. Um, and yeah, in 2022, an Israeli court ruled that there were no legal barriers to expelling Palestinians from their land. In 1999, Palestinians were forcefully expelled for illegally living in a firing zone, but they were there first, and then Israel designated their land as a firing zone, and then they were expelled from their land for existing illegally on in an arbitrary zone designated by the military. A petition allowed many to return to their homes, but most didn't because of the constant threat of like property destruction and violence and risk of another forcible transfer. Um, Here's a map of the firing zone 918, which was provided by B'Tselem, which is another human rights organization. And in the red zone, that is the active firing zone, and in the yellow is the inactive firing zone. Since 2022, home demolitions in this area have increased or accelerated significantly. In Khirbet Al Taban, you could see my cursor so that I could point to it. Every single home and livelihood structure was demolished. In Khalet Tataba, there were 20 homes and livelihood structures demolished since 2022. And some families have rebuilt. Some families have rebuilt 2 or 3 times, and then have had their homes destroyed again and again. And it's incredibly difficult to build. It's incredibly difficult to get a permit to build. Israel denies 95% of permit applications that are submitted. And it's also really expensive. And residents in this area are some of the most vulnerable residents in Palestine. They're because of the apartheid and oppressive structures that are in place, they're highly dependent on humanitarian aid. And because of the way that the settlements and outposts are scattered among their villages, they're under constant threat. They live in a constant state of fear. There's nonstop harassment. settlers and the occupation will, poison their wells, set fire to their cars or their homes. They steal from them, and just basically disrupt their lives in general. Uh, there are many tools of the state that help Israel carry out their ethnic cleansing campaign. You have the settlers, who are people from all over the world that come and view the Palestine as like the new frontier, where they can go and they their thing is a land without a people for a people without a land, but there are people there, of course. Um, and so when I was there, I'm originally from New York. I ran into someone that had a hat on that was from a town in Long Island, not far from where I grew up, and I was just like, "What are you doing here?" And then there are the occupation soldiers, and then is settler militia, and settler militia will are they're often reservists, and they'll dress up as army. They'll dress up in fatigues, and they're armed and they're dangerous, and they act as if they have the authority of the army. And while they don't technically have the legal authority, the army will often come in and back up whatever crimes they're trying to wage against Palestinians. Um, Settlements in the West Bank have settlement security officers who have really broad policing powers when it comes to Palestinians. Then there are the police and the border police. The civil administration is the body that creates the maps that are used to determine when Palestinians are living illegally in a firing zone. And then, of course, there's the military law enforcement system. So Palestinians that live in the West Bank, Palestinians in Palestine are subject to military law when Israelis are afforded the luxuries of civilian law. So when a Palestinian is arrested, for example, they're arrested by the military. If an Israeli or a settler was arrested, they're arrested by the police, and they're eligible for a fair trial and so on and so forth. Whereas Palestinians are subject to being held in administrative detention for forever. They could indefinitely extend their sentence without even any charges.
I'm not hearing anything.
So this is a settler soldier who's part of settler militia coming to Palestinian land to harass us, telling us that we can't be here, that we have to go to Gaza or Taiman. Taiman is the prison where Palestinians, it has been published research and evidence of Palestinians being tortured in there, being raped, coming out, being released from Taiman looking like shells of the humans that they once were. So he's threatening us and telling us to go to these dangerous places that are dangerous because of the state of Israel. Gaza wouldn't be dangerous if it wasn't for the state of Israel. Here are some more tools of the state that we face in the West Bank. There in the middle in that main photo, that's the man with the hat from Massapequa, New York. These are settler soldiers working with the police. This picture was taken the first time that I was detained for standing in solidarity with Palestinians. We went to an area that was where Palestinians were standing and witnessing settlers graze their sheep on Palestinian land. And so we stood there to witness it and record. And then the settler soldiers came, told us that we had to leave. told us that we weren't allowed to be here. And then the police just happened to be driving through, coming from another incident on the other side of the hill. And then the police were immediately working with the settler soldiers, took my passport, took another volunteer's passport, held us for an hour, told us that we were not allowed to be here. But this is Palestinian land, and we were invited to be there and welcome to be there. On the top right, there's a Palestinian youth, settler youth grazing his flock on Palestinian land. And then on the bottom, you can see an army truck driving through a village. They had just left the mosque, which is just behind from where the picture was taken. And this is a daily occurrence. They are constantly patrolling Palestinian villages. They're constantly harassing the residents. You can see a child leaned up against the wall there, just hanging out, just living their daily lives. Having to face this kind of like harassment is insane. On the right here, there's a settler driving his ATV through Palestinian land. So the settler on the left that was driving his ATV is driving his ATV directly into a flock of sheep that belonged to the Palestinians that were grazing on their land. They have no problem hurting people or hurting animals. And on the right, this truck is the family vehicle for a family that lives in a really remote compound at the top of a hill across from an illegal settlement. And then there's an outpost being built really close to their home that developed really quickly over the time that I was there. Settlers came in the middle of the night and set fire to their car. This was the second time their car was set on fire. The first time they were able to salvage what was like left of it, but after this, there was no repair. And this is the only vehicle that this family has. Without it, they're reliant on their donkey for transportation into town or into the nearest city, Yatta, where they would go to buy groceries or produce or go to see a doctor or go to the pharmacy. And so now they've been completely left without any mode of transportation. It's also really difficult to get to their home because of the roads. It's very rocky and there aren't like paved roads up to their home. So they've been really put out by this crime. Sorry, I don't know how to skip to the next one. Sorry about that. This is the aftermath of the fire that you saw in the previous slide, and these are pictures from their home. Settlers came to their home one day in May 2024. They walked in, they demanded coffee from the Palestinians that lived there. They sat down on their sofas outside of their home, lit cigarettes, and just occupied this home. And they're terrifying. There are children in this house, and they are asked to leave, and they don't leave. They tell the Palestinians that they need to leave. So when they were asking for coffee, they went around the home, they went inside, they looked in every single room. It was as if they were surveying the property or taking inventory of what of their belongings, or a layout of the home, likely to plan for future incursions. Here are just some more images of the beauty and the lovely side of Palestine, another sunset, and here is the call to prayer.
Mm. Mhm.
So Palestinians in the West Bank, they are facing apartheid, and apartheid looks like many things. There's the apartheid wall, of course, which you can see in this video. I'm driving up north on my way to Ramallah, alongside the apartheid wall. They put up roadblocks. They'll push giant boulders into like the one single road that leads to a bunch of villages in the South Hebron Hills. They destroy crops. They poison them. They poison water wells, or will stab water wells and empty them and destroy them. They demolish their homes. There's the apartheid road and bus system where Palestinians, because of the plates that they have on their car, they're not allowed to access the same roads and public transit services that are available to Israelis and settlers. And there are permanent checkpoints set up all over the West Bank to get from Masafriata to Jerusalem, for example, should only take about an hour if you drive. But for a Palestinian, because they have to go through these checkpoints and on the apartheid road, it could take all day. And it's not even a guarantee that they'll get to their destination. Another part of the work that we do with ISM is we witness home demolitions, which is unfortunately really frequent. This demolition was on May 7th, 2024, and there was a line of border police who prevented the family from who blocked the road and prevented the family from trying to defend their home. And while they were there, they were cursing at Palestinians, they were kicking children, they pushed an elderly woman, and they said something. They said that all Palestinians are autistic and gay. So here's a video.
Amira, I think we haven't been able to hear the audio, so if you have audio on this, let me know if you can share it.
On the bottom right, you can see the aftermath of the home demolition from the incident in the slide just before. In the main photo, this is another point of apartheid. These are women who are who have permits and can go to Al Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. And they want to go and pray during Ramadan, and they were denied entry at the checkpoint. And so they stayed at the checkpoint and they prayed there. And while they prayed, the army pointed their guns at them. On the top right, there's the boulder that blocks the road to the family whose car was burned down. And these are just like a very, very few examples of the kinds of obstacles that Palestinians face in their day-to-day lives.
Well, Amira,
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting, but I think people haven't been able to hear the audio, so I don't know if you have any upcoming
Oh,
videos. If so, I
okay.
change the setting or something and to share audio on your computer.
Let me see. I'm so sorry about that.
No, I think we were able to understand the context of the videos though, but I think
Yeah,
for some videos maybe that would have
I
been
think it might take a while for me to figure out
okay.
how to
Yeah, no
change
worries.
that setting or find it. I don't know what it is. So I'll skip those going forward. I apologize. Um, uh, when we were in Palestine, we spent a lot of time with the family of Harun Abu Aram, who was shot point blank in the neck when he was at his neighbor's home demolition. He was trying to prevent the occupation from stealing a generator. There were no international activists that were there that day, unfortunately. Um, the ISM kind of took a little bit of a hit during COVID, and there were a lot less people traveling, obviously, with all of the travel restrictions that were placed on people all over the world. So there were no activists there that day, and there's no way to know would this have happened if there were international activists there. Um, but we do know, based on over 20 years of work, that they are less violent when we're watching them. Um, Here is just a screenshot of Harun's mother sharing with me how important it is for us to come and share the story of her family. Um, Harun was shot in the back of the neck and he was paralyzed from the neck down. And for 2 years, he lived on the floor of his family's cave. And they were living in a cave because a year before Harun was shot, they demolished his home. And so for 2 years, his mother and his sisters took care of him while his father went to work every day. And in February 2023, Harun took his last breaths. Um, it was really difficult at the end of his life getting to the hospital for treatment or to see a doctor at all. Um, they would often go through these checkpoints and be turned away, and he wouldn't even be able to access the life-saving treatment that he needed. This is a video of the of when Harun was shot. I will spare you. It's quite difficult to see. But here's Harun and his sister in a really lovely photo before he passed away. Here's some nicer Here's some nicer content. Here's a family that I stayed with quite a bit. They are posing with hearts, showing us, me and the other volunteer that we were with, that they love us. On the top right, the eldest son, who's been taken out of school to support the family and their shepherding efforts, is wearing the sheared wool of one of his sheep. And on the bottom, you can see a Palestinian man with two other volunteers, international volunteers, sitting on the second level of his home, kind of patrolling the area. He lives on the very edge of his village, and there's an illegal outpost right next to his home. And he is harassed every single day. So he spends most of his days up here in the unfinished level of his home, watching out for settlers and for uh, the occupation. And what the international activists will do is we'll just go and sit with him and just wait and hope that nothing will happen. This level of his home is unfinished because there is no permit available to him to allow him to finish the construction. And this is how many people are forced to live in the West Bank. So the kind of the some of the obstacles that international activists face um, in Palestine is that Ben-Gvir, the national security minister of Israel, uh, formed a task force to target activists. They designated us as violent anarchists, and they accuse us of like provoking. the IOF, and their goal is to get rid of us. Their goal is to get us out of Palestine so that they can do their bidding, their dirty work, without any international coverage. They know that mainstream media is not going to cover what they do or report on what they do, and Palestinians rely on grassroots efforts like ISM to share their story and share their truth with the world. Here is a picture from the second time that I got detained. This man is holding my passport while the other soldier is taking a photo of it with his personal phone. What he did with that information, where that information lives today, I have no idea. The man who's holding my passport is also the driver of the white vehicle that you see in the two photos on the side. Here he is driving through a different village, just patrolling and harassing and intimidating the families that live there. Just after October 7th, this man went to a Palestinian's home and kidnapped the father, covered him with a blanket, beat him up. And while the wife recorded this incident with her phone, they took her phone, they smashed it into a million pieces, destroyed all of the evidence, and then they arrested the father. The Palestinian family, they were not doing anything. They were just living in their home. They were just existing. And this man has been a really scary person to kind of deal with and face. From this very first day that I met him, when he detained me, he followed me every single place that I went in the West Bank. I even had to run away from being chased by one of his drones. I'm sure that the occupation has plenty of content of our faces and maybe our identities. And they're trying to make solidarity work impossible. They're trying to scare us away. But we persist. ISM persists, just like the Palestinian people do. Samud is the Arabic word for steadfastness, and there is no people on earth with more samud and resistance and joy than Palestinians. In the top right, top left, sorry, these are the tents that were constructed after the home demolition that I witnessed. This is where the Palestinians, that Palestinian family decided to stay, and this is their land. They're not going anywhere, whether they have their home or not. This is them staying, resisting. This are another family laughing with me and the father. This is actually the family who the story I just told you about, where the father was kidnapped and beat up with a blanket over his head. This is after that incident, not immediately after, but they still find ways to persist and be joyful and be happy with their families. On the bottom, that's just a picture of me and another activist at a demonstration in Ramallah on Nakba Day, which is the anniversary of the Nakba in May. That was in May 2024. This is me. This actually is a really lovely video. I wish I could share it with you, because the children are singing a song about Arab pain and Arab resistance and feeling left behind by other Arab nations. And these children are 10 and 12 years old, and this is what they sing about. These are the songs that are stuck in their head. They sing about the pain of their people. And it's just lovely. I wish I could share it, but if you can't hear it, I'm sorry. So the Palestinians in the West Bank have been facing violence and aggression since the West Bank existed. But since October 7th, obviously, they've faced a lot more aggression. The settlers are now armed, and Ben-Gvir proudly passed out automatic weapons to settlers all over the West Bank immediately after October 7th. And so not only are they dangerous, but now they're also thoroughly armed. In the video that I won't share now, this is just a video of some settler youth who were armed, who were leaving the scene of harassing Palestinians on their land. An armed settler taking a photo of us on the top right there, and then the bottom photo is not my content, but this is I forget where this picture came from, but Ben-Gvir, the national security minister, is there distributing arms to Israelis. When I was in Palestine, there was an attack on the main produce market in Ramallah, which is a massive, gorgeous, lovely market where many people get their livelihoods from. And they fired tear gas canisters and live ammunition, and the entire place was completely destroyed. Over $670,000 worth of damage was incurred there. There's a settler attack on the village of Al Mughayr, where they destroyed crops and opened fire on the villagers. And on the bottom right, this is a currency exchange office where that was attacked by the occupation. The occupation claims that currency exchange offices are like feeding money to terrorist organizations. This is not true. And so they attack these places and then they steal all of their money. On June 5th, this is Naksa Day, which is the day that East Jerusalem was captured by Israel. And Israelis celebrate this as a victory. And this journalist was there simply documenting what was going on in Jerusalem that day, and this mob attacked him. And as a result of the attack, he had a head injury, and he was actually detained and questioned by police while his attackers were allowed to walk free. I want to leave you with this quote as I close out the meat of my presentation. Mahmoud Darwish is a Palestinian poet. We suffer from an incurable malady, hope. And hope is that Palestine will be free, Palestine will be liberated. And there you have it. If you would like to support the work of ISM, we are crowdfunding to get a car. With a car, we're able to respond to incidents on the ground quicker. We're able to deliver aid to families all around. We're able to just have a presence in more places in Palestine. It is incredibly difficult to get around. And so we're trying to raise money to get a car. So that's the QR code. I'll also share the link in the chat. Another way to support us is to follow our work. We're on all major social media platforms. We have a website where we publish press releases and blog posts. We need people to talk about what we're doing and show the world what we're doing. Show our work to networks that aren't plugged in, who aren't paying attention to what's going on in Palestine. And the best way to support our work is to join our work. We look for volunteers to give a 2-week to 3-month commitment on the ground in Palestine. There are volunteers of all walks of life who come, of all ages, of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, of all religions. Everyone is welcome. So if you are interested in joining ISM, you can email ISM to get that process started. It was the honor of my life, and I cannot wait to go back. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure sharing my story with you.
Thank you so much, Amira, for your presentation today. So there's a few questions. If you have more questions for Amira, please put it in the chat. So someone asked how long are you, well, I guess it's 3 months, but has it been increasingly difficult to obtain visas? And especially now with like the targeting of activists. I mean, you mentioned your passport was taken. So what do you anticipate also your own situation with visas and other activists?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell what kind of obstacles we're going to face. Personally, I haven't returned since I was there since I left in June. However, three different volunteers that I was with on the ground at that time have all returned safely and have been able to carry on this work. There was one other volunteer that I was with who was denied entry, but they were associated with some other work in Palestine and had a highly publicized name, who was in the media. So it kind of made sense that he faced difficulty at the border. Um, I'm not exactly sure what the visa process is these days. So I don't want to say anything incorrect. I was able to get a visa on arrival with my American passport. I crossed into the West Bank from Amman. I was in Amman, Jordan, and then I took the King Hussein crossing to get to the West Bank. Um, and it was really scary. I was really scared to cross the border. You know, I'm an activist at home. I am very passionate about Palestine, and so you know we take certain measures to kind of protect ourselves. I had shut down all of my social media. I reset my phone. I wasn't traveling with any visible support of Palestine. I didn't have a kafia in my bag or anything like that. And I I was a tourist for all intents and purposes.
And are there other campaigns that are happening also in Mr. Faryata as well that like for international audience we can follow or know more about?
Yeah, there's Youth of Sumud, which is an account that you can follow. That is they are based in Masafriyata. It's run by a Palestinian group of activists, and they publish a lot of the violence that they face every day. Um, there are uh, there are several other accounts and organizations that I would be really happy to share, if I could share them with you like via email afterward, and then you can distribute it. But off the top of my head, I don't want to give anything. I don't want to call anything by the wrong name, or you know.
Yeah. And is ISM based in other places as well in the West Bank? Have they been based in the past in any other location, or has it always been Masafriyata?
Yeah, ISM has been able to, with more volunteers coming, we've been able to expand. We've been focused on Masafriyata for a while now, but we've been able to expand to Beta, to Kusra, to the Jordan Valley, um, and I know that we've had some volunteers going into Jenin and Tulkarm refugee camps. So the more people that we have on the ground, the bigger our reach is. But at one point when I was there, I was one of four volunteers, so we could only be in one. We don't work alone, um, and so we could only be down in the south.
Amazing. And I wanted to hear also a little bit more about what international solidarity looks like for you and the people at ISM. If you want to say a few words about, international solidarity.
Yeah, you know, after the genocide began in October 2023, I was really active in my community, and I was out in the streets and I was protesting, but I couldn't make sense of the privilege that I am afforded as a white woman in America, going to work every day, being invited to birthday parties. I couldn't understand why I got to live this life and Palestinians were being bombed every day into, you know, mothers were mourning their children, and I mean, just the worst crimes against humanity I was witnessing every single day, and um I couldn't square that circle. Why not me? Why weren't my people being genocided? Why do I get to live and they have to die? Um and so I wanted to go to Gaza. I wanted to be in solidarity with Palestinians who were facing the onslaught of occupation, bombardment, because I didn't feel like my life was worth anything if I wasn't putting it on the line to protect people who the world has abandoned. And I think that a lot of volunteers who do this sort of work feel the same kind of level of, guilt, and want to use their privilege for something really meaningful. Yeah. Sorry, I think that was a little intense. I'm sorry.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. And someone asked if ISM is also like based in the US in terms of like having a nonprofit status or tax ID in the US.
Um, no, we don't have a nonprofit status or tax ID here. We just do crowdfunding. The organization itself doesn't provide any like funding to volunteers. Um, and so it is just a grassroots Palestinian-led movement um, that operates in Palestine alone.
Thank you. Oh, and if you can put the link for buying a car in the chat, I think some people weren't able to access
Yes,
the QR code.
yes, absolutely. I'll do that right now. Sorry about that.
Someone also asked if you work with EAPPI, which is the Ecumenical Accompaniment Program from the World Council of Churches. They also do similar witnessing and reporting. I have a feeling they don't work that much in Mustafa Yata, but I also know you guys have other partners like, so if you want to mention maybe other people that kind of work with ISM in Mustafa Yata as well that you might know of.
Yeah, there are other organizations like I've never heard of the one that you just mentioned, but um, there is one called CPT, which used to be, I think, Christian Protective Teams, but now it's like the name has changed to Community Protection, something like that. There's a group called Hunenu, which is for Jewish activists in solidarity with Palestine. Um, and then there's an Italian organization called Operation Dove that is just Italian, mostly Italian speaking. So yeah, there are other organizations. There are also autonomous activists who, through their networks or through their work, end up in a place like Masafrietta, kind of working with just loosely and not with the uh, benefits of working with an organization. There are a lot of anti-Zionist Israeli activists, for example, that do this sort of work on the ground.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amira. Is there any other questions for Amira before we conclude our time with her? Okay, so I don't see any other questions. Maybe one or two might pop up soon, but thank you so much, Amira, for sharing all the pictures and videos. It's important to, I mean, I think a lot of people here know what's going on in the West Bank or vaguely know in terms of current updates, but it's always important to have that microcosm of what's happening in, very specific areas and witnessing, what's going on a daily basis. So this is really important. And thank you so much for your solidarity and your work in Mustafa Yata, and we hope, you'll be able to go back and continue your work. Some people also, I think, I just wanted to mention that Reverend Fahed, who's a attendee of most of Sabil's events, has put his email. I think he's based in Atlanta. If you want to do the same presentation, so you can email him. And if you want to put your email down too, if anyone wants to invite you to do other presentations about ISM. So thank you so much for the updates and everything.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to, there's a lot of the chat that I've missed, so I'm going to drop my email address in here. Feel free to contact me. I'm happy to give this presentation anytime. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to my presentation. I hope you have a wonderful day and free Palestine.
Thank you, Mira.
Take care.
All right, so if anyone needs Amira's, I don't know if she was able to put it in the chat, but I can put this in the chat if anyone wants to contact her. In the meantime, I know we have a little bit, very little time together left, but I would love to open the discussion for any actions or activities that are happening in your communities. We have the kuminow.com/action website, so you can visit that, although we need to update it for next week. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and feel free to raise your hand if you want to say anything, and we can have a discussion.